Good afternoon from New York. I'm Selwyn Collins, your host of CWS ASITIS. Before I start the program, I want to say a few words I heard recently that was very inspiring, and I think it applies to Guyana. I heard an entrepreneur by the name of Kola Kareem on the TEDx, and he said, Africa will never come out of its doldrums till we build a generation of Africa entrepreneurs that will define the jobs, that will create income, create revenue, and build people and sustaining businesses that will pay taxes to build Africa. And how appropriate and apropos to Guyana. I have elected to do these Sunday afternoon programs, beginning with young people, because I believe that they are our future, a hidden treasure. Not so hidden, actually, because I've met some of them and they're doing amazing things. But I'm hoping that I can encourage a new paradigm, or a paradigm in which many like myself take up the mantle, even though so many are doing this sort of thing. But we need more to encourage them and empower them into entrepreneurship and self, self-fulfillment. The young lady next to me is Miss Akola Thompson. Let me take off these glasses. I can barely see in them. And Akola is 21 years old, student of University of Guyana. She holds a bachelor's in English. She's a socio-political columnist at the Guyana Chronicle, a women's rights activist, founder of web series Women's Wednesday, which is particularly what we want to talk to her about. Akola, thank you for taking the time to speak with me this afternoon.
Yes, thank you for having me, Selwyn. I've seen your show before. So it's nice to finally be on here.
Give thanks to Annie J. Lambert. She's the producer of this Sunday afternoon shows. Before we go in, Akola, what is accurate about how people close to you usually describe you?
Pardon?
What is accurate when people close to you describe you?
I'm not quite sure how to answer that. I know one of the funniest ways one of my friends described me is that when they introduce me to people, it'd be like, this is Akola Thompson. She has very strong opinions about stuff. And so I feel like broadly, that's the way people see me, just as this person that just always has an opinion on a lot of things.
I asked you this question off camera, but I'm going to ask it again. 21 years of age, and you've taken on this mantle, this endeavor, a controversial topic, women's issues. Uh, do a lot of people tell you that you're too young, or marvel at your age?
Yeah, I definitely get that a lot. People always assume that I'm older than I am. One of someone was telling me the other day that they actually got into a heated argument with some of their friends because they were insisting that I was 25, and the other person said no, she's 21. So whenever I say I'm 21, people are always surprised, like, oh, you're so young and you're doing all of this. And it's definitely I don't know, it's good in a way. You get a sort of ego boost when people tell you that you're too young to be doing all of this, but it's also very tiring.
Mm. We are interested this afternoon in um, your works in women's advocacy, the Women's Wednesday program you've started. Could you tell us a little bit as to how it got started and why?
Okay, sure. Now, back in March, I was the local organizer for something called the Life in Leggings movement. It started in Barbados by Ronald King. And what we did, Life in Leggings, it was a hashtag used to form solidarity among sexual violence victims and stuff. So they would share their stories. And eventually, what we sought to do was kind of bring it to a physical place. So we had marches across the Caribbean. Ghana was one of those countries, and I led the Life and Legacy March here. And it was there I would have connected with persons, activists across the Caribbean, and one of them was Alicia Wallace from the Bahamas. And she started Women's Wednesdays in the Bahamas, and I saw the web series, and I thought it was very interesting. And I reached out to her and told her that I wanted to start something similar here. the thing was that in the Bahamas they have it in a physical space, but I decided to do it as a web series because one, there would be a lot more reach for persons to actually see, and two, we, I can't afford a physical space, so the web makes it much easier for me to talk to people and raise certain topics with them.
You obviously realized you needed to identify a sort of, if I may say, disruptive campaign to address women's issues. Because you just said it, you started from where you are with what you have, and I commend you for that. That is so very important.
Thank
And
you.
as such, you started from where you are without you have, but some will argue that while the show will increase the dialogue, you need to pivot from awareness to action. There is that. So you're
Yeah.
enlightening people and people become aware and so on. So there's how do you move from awareness to action? Any thoughts on next steps?
Well, with every I feel like everybody has a part to play in something.
Hmm.
And my part, I always believe that we should move to solid solutions because one of the things I do is awareness. I do a lot of awareness building and trying to raise interest in certain topics. Like I'm very passionate about health and reproductive rights and stuff. So I would use the show to talk about issues like that. But when it actually comes to implementation and getting people access to these things, that's where the other problem lies because a lot of the times you don't realize the role that stigma and discrimination and all this plays in getting things off the ground. As I said again, when it comes to abortion, even though we bring out awareness and we tell people all the things they need to know, they may still be stopped from getting abortion because they know if they go to an abortion clinic, then they will not necessarily want to do that because if anyone sees them, then the chances of them being seen as in a negative light is very possible, and not a lot of persons want to do that. So we really need to start getting away from the discrimination and the stereotype that encompasses a lot of the issues we touch. But with regards to going to a solid solution, we have to do a lot of partnerships.
Hmm.
Partnerships are very important, particularly in civil societies. So while I may be doing awareness, one other person may be doing things such as implementation. They may be handing out condoms or they may be offering free services. So when you have those kind of partnerships, it makes it very easier to get those kind of solid solutions you always want to see with regards to advocacy and social work.
When how long ago you started this?
Pardon?
How long ago have you started this?
The Women's Wednesdays.
Yes.
Okay, that started approximately about a month ago. I think we've done like 4 or 5 web series so far.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that. But when you first started this whole movement, and I would like to call it a movement, what were some of the challenges you encountered in the beginning?
One of the challenges was getting people to take you seriously, particularly when it comes to getting people on the show and talking about it. Because, for instance, when you have people talking, then you want to make sure that they're qualified to actually speak. You know, we don't want to have somebody talking on race relations if they're not if they're not educated or have done a lot of work in that area or experience or something. So when you actually reach out to these people, a lot of times they may not be interested because it's just like a live feed. But I have had some very great people who have given their time and decided to come, and the response has been very good. I will say that I didn't expect the response to be so overwhelming, and I am glad to see that people have such an interest in it, and I hope that it continues for a long time.
Um, can you give us a particular defining moment for you during this?
Well, one of our sessions, we were talking about sexual harassment, sexual violence in a whole, but we were talking about it. And one of the persons we had on Natasha Smith. A lot of people remember Natasha when she had the incident at NCN where she was removed because she was pregnant. But on the show, she would have talked about her own experience with sexual violence and how she herself would have been raped and assaulted by her partners. And she chose that space to kind of tell her story. And if you would look back at that video, you would see how unsettling it all was, because you never really, even though you talk about sexual violence a lot, you never really have it close to you unless you've been a victim yourself.
Hmm.
Then you never really experience it firsthand or so close to you or know people that have gone through it. So it was kind of a moment that sat heavily on my mind, and it made me just realize the sheer depth of the problem, because she didn't have just one incident. It wasn't just one incident. She had several incidents where various men would have assaulted her or tried to assault her, and it just kind of hit home then how entrenched the problem of violence against our women is, and how the silence that permeates the whole conversation about around it is.
It's undoubtedly that you tackle some very controversial topics: natural hair on the workplace, access to abortion, use of contraceptives, postpartum depression, victim blaming. Okay, is there a favorite topic to discuss for you?
A favorite topic? I don't have a favorite topic per se, but if I had to keep choosing something I want to do, I guess it will be on sexual health and reproductive services,
Hmm.
because I do believe that it is very, very important for women to have safe and affordable access to safe health and reproductive services, because if they don't, then that can lead to a whole other host of issues. Because when we continuously tell women that you're not allowed to get contraception or you're not allowed to get an abortion, we need to realize that whether we want them to or not, women will get these things. If they want an abortion, they will manage to get it, because people have been having abortions for centuries, and the policies we put in place, it makes it more harmful for them, because they're still going to have abortions, but the only thing that changes now is they have no safe access to it. And that is very dangerous. We have many, many deaths when it comes to that. So I think that is definitely one of the things I'm most passionate about.
Well, let's stick on it a little bit. I want to open up the question some more. Um, how how can you talk about partners? How can
Mhm.
the government help?
I didn't get that, sorry.
How can the government help in this particular area?
With regards to
Sexual health and
reproductive.
reproductive
Okay.
services.
One of the things that we definitely need to explore with regards to the government is the issue of abstinence only education. Currently in Guyana, we have an abstinence only policy. So if you go to a public school, the chances of you learning about condoms and contraception, or even about your general body, you won't get those conversations, because they're not allowed on the curriculum. Now, places such as GRPA, they've had a lot of latitude, so they would go into a lot of schools and they'd be able to talk about some of these issues. But largely, school children are not, they're not privy to the sort of information they need for their development. So definitely the government needs to explore the the role of the sex education curriculum, the abstinence only one, and revise that. Because right now how it is, it's very dangerous. Children are walking around with no sexual knowledge. And I think that people, particularly parents, policymakers, they put this bag over their head and they pretend that their children are not having sex. Your children are having sex. They're just not doing it safely. They're not doing it properly because they don't have the education about it. So that is very necessary.
I have to ask you this because I have met the Minister of Education before, and one of the things that stuck out to me is that she believes in empirical data. She believes in data to back up someone's um,
Mhm.
views on any particular topic. If you had her ear, either now at this moment or sometime later, you had her ear, what would you tell her, and how would you back up your supposition?
So I have a lot of research on my side.
Mm.
Any quick research you will tell you that abstinence only education, it just simply does not work. Every single research that has looked into it has found that it has actually been ineffective, or it has actually caused more harm than it's caused good, because it does not lower, it does not, it might offset the age at which children may engage in sex. That has been one thing that has been looked at and has been used as an argument, but that's not by a lot. And even then, when they do engage in sex now, they don't have the knowledge it takes to have safe sex. So they open themselves to a lot of risk, a lot of STDs, unplanned pregnancies. So we just look at the evidence, you will see abstinence only education, it does not work. We need to take a holistic approach when it comes to sex education, because not doing that has seen our children just walking around not knowing what their options are, not knowing what their normal bodily responses are, because they're just simply not taught these things. And it's not like this information is not available to the government. The availability of the information that abstinence only does not work has been around for a very, very long time, and it's just a matter of them paying attention to that information now.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to ask the question in case someone who is listening may want to offer an answer as well. If this information is available to the government, what do you think? What do you think is what do you think is the reason why it has not been implemented? Because we can't assume it's not being addressed. But what is the reason you think is not being implemented? And you don't
One
have
of
to
the
answer
main
that question.
reasons, yeah, one of the main reasons that we still have abstinence only education is due to religion.
Religion.
So, yes, when it comes to religion, it has its tentacles into a lot of things. Now, because Guyana or school society, when it first started out, we had a lot. Most of our schools were church based. So if you wanted to go to school, you either had to become Christian or something. So you had to fit into that mold, and that's kind of, even after we had our own school systems developed, we still kind of kept that same close connection to the church. And even though we should be secular, we are a secular state, we still have this kind of interrelationship between a lot of government programs and religion. In this case, we have a connection between religion and education, and that shouldn't be. Because whenever we bring up the topic of sex education, a lot of the persons, particularly parents, they argue on religious grounds that this would encourage their children to be promiscuous. It would encourage them to have more sex, and that's just simply inaccurate.
Do you think, and Guyana is known for its amazing debates in the tertiary education. Do you think some debates on this, with the pros and cons of sexual education in school, will help push this needle, move this dial a little?
Well, I'm not sure how far these debates actually go. I remember not so long ago we had an entire debate about the relevance of prayers in public schools. We had a
Mhm.
very large debate about that. The minister at the time, Dr. Rupert Rupnarain, he even spoke about it and talked about how it would be removed from schools. But up to the other day, I went into my child's classroom. She goes to a public school, and they were still saying Christian prayers. This was over a year and something ago. So I think debates are necessary. Yes, we need to have debates to further the discussion, but also we need to stop using the excuse that, oh, we haven't had this debate. There's a lot of information out there, so it's just to kind of gather all of this information and work from that. We don't need to just keep addressing one thing over and over and again when we just keep coming up with the same solutions. It's either we work with the solutions we have now and try to better that,
Mhm.
instead of just trying to just run this along, because it's been a very tiring process.
You talk about sticking on one thing. You know, your topics are wide, and it would be kind of unfair for me to just settle on sexual health and reproductive services. But and I have a lot of questions to you, for you. But let me just go to Facebook, and there's some people making some comments. Dr. Wazir Muhammad said, "I salute this young woman for speaking so eloquently on this issue. A young woman like this should be involved in the ministry to help schools expand and explore the kind of education. Because our religious practices is living in the past, this is why we only have abstinence-only education. That's Dr. Muhammad. And
Yeah.
then we should struggle for safe access. Hold on, let me scroll this. Safe access. Government should pass laws and create structures. Thank you,
Mm.
Dr. Muhammad. And then there is Colin Williams asking if he can ask a question. Okay, so we'll wait for Colin to ask his question.
Okay.
Do you typically choose the topic or others suggest? How do you arrive at the topic to discuss on Wednesdays?
Well, okay, firstly, I'm a lazy person, so I try to encourage persons to send their suggestions, but nobody ever does. So I end up choosing the topics. How I choose them, sometimes I try to put out a call, say, okay, what should we focus on next week? And sometimes people answer, but most of the times I'm left to my own devices. So I just try to pick topics that I know that I feel strongly about and I know I can get people to actually talk about. But suggestions are definitely open for the show.
Okay, all right. I should introduce you to my network. Perhaps that might help. What
Maybe.
has been your greatest surprise so far?
My greatest surprise?
hmm doing this show.
Well, I'm still waiting for it to happen. I'm yeah, I'm still waiting on the great surprise to happen. So far it's been kind of just, run of the mill. You go, you do the interviews, you answer the questions, and engagement from the public has been kind of topsy turvy, but engagement is always nice and encouraged. But no defining moments as yet.
hmm
So
I want to ask that question again, but a different way about surprise.
yeah.
What has surprised you? What has surprised you most about yourself having started this journey?
Okay. One of the things is just going on with it because one of the challenges I've always had is continuation. I'd start something and then I'd get distracted by a side project and then I'd start that. And that's always been a thing. So I'd become so caught up with everything that I just sometimes kind of have to leave everything down. But with regards to Women's Wednesdays now, it's been really good because I've had to set myself on a strict path to just kind of keep everything going along. And it has been good. So I've surprised myself with being able to manage to upkeep the show so far. I mean, it's only been a month, so I might be over speaking a bit, but so far it's managed to help me focus a bit more. And it's also helped me to expand my knowledge base a bit more because, as I said, we try to get persons who are expert, well, not experts, but just knowledgeable in the area they're talking about. And that, of course, gives me more knowledge.
Okay, 21. I'm saying this at the risk of sounding like I'm an age discriminator, but I'm really moved by this, moved by age. You heard Dr. Wazir Muhammad said something similar. Um, you're only 21. There is there was this thing in the air for the past few years about young people feeling disenfranchised and they're not getting the kind of help they want and the kind of encouragement. But here you are at 21, and you had the courage and the fire to start what you're doing. If you were to if you were to advise a group of young people who are thinking about getting into entrepreneurship, what would you say? What would you tell them?
Oh boy, advising young people. I don't know how well I can do that, but well, entrepreneurship in itself, I I'm not sure I might be the best person
All right,
to
let's do
ask.
this. Let's do this because I want you to answer this question. Let's put entrepreneurship as a footnote or a subnote. How would you advise other young people to just do what it is they want to do?
Okay, so I think that is very important for young persons. We have a lot of very passionate young persons, and I think that I think the whole thing that young people are not stepping up to the plate I feel like it's a myth.
Hmm.
There definitely are a lot of young persons that I know. My timeline is just flooded every day with inspirational young Guyanese people who are just up there every day trying to do inspirational things. It's just a matter of them getting the support systems they need and kind of moving on from there. Because of what we have a lot of times, particularly in Guyana, is that we have a small subset of people. And when those in power, when they're coming out of power now, they have this small subset of people who they would give that power to. And so these hardworking young people who are trying, who are doing volunteer work and who are just trying their best to make their countries a better place, then they're not in the loop because they're not being brought into that space. And when it comes to that, no, it's important for them to not become discouraged. For myself, I have no grand plans of power or anything. I just found something that I'm passionate about, and I try to do and try to merge that with my passion and the need for the public to be aware of certain things. So my advice is just to find something that you may be passionate about, and if you feel like it'll be good and it'll be worth it, then you should definitely charge ahead. Disregard whatever praise you think you might get for it, and just try to do it out of the goodness of your heart. Because that's what matters. It matters that you have passion, and it matters that you drive through with that.
You know, you said you don't have any, grand ideas or political aspirations or so on, is what I take it to mean. But the what you're passionate about and the way you go about it um, are ways that give rise to grandness, give rise to amazing opportunities. What if you find yourself one day in a situation where being given the mantle of some political office or something? What would you do?
That's a very interesting question. I'm not particularly sure what I would do.
Hmm.
I feel that a lot of times when persons active in society, when they enter politics, it becomes a bit thing. So I'm not sure that politics is exactly for me. I feel like my place is more in social work and trying to get persons to know of their options and know and just try to discourage some of the things and destabilize some of these harmful ideas we have of certain things in this place. I don't think politically I see myself on the political scene.
I
It's
got
just
it.
not.
I got it, Akola. Here's my challenge. I'm gonna go to the to Facebook in a second. My challenge is, and I always thought this, that 25 minutes isn't adequate, and I never more do I have I believed this than this afternoon with you. So I am going to bring you back at a later date, either on the main show or something, so that we can dive a little deeper into some of these questions that I have for you. Anyway,
Definitely.
right? I'm definitely going to do that. So Colin said we need more young people to seize the moment and do not wait on government or try to follow the path of some old successful political culture.
Mhm.
Here's this question: what gives this young lady her fire to do what she's doing, and is she stimulating others? For this is the future of Guyana. Well, where do you get your passion from, Akola?
I feel like everybody's passion is just kind of developed over time from their personal experiences. I know I myself growing up, it's a very violent culture in Ghana, very violent society. So I grew up around violence. I grew up around sexual violence and stuff. So I've been seeing this a very, very long time. And as a result, when I was finally in a space where I was able to just kind of challenge some of these ideas, I remember actually the first time I began to challenge some of those ideas was when we had the incident with the former Minister of Social Protection, Bob Lawrence, and the person from the Mayor City Council, the Councillor Winston Harden. And then Valdo Lawrence would have referred to a rape allegation against Winston as a family matter. And I remember that it made me so angry that I actually I saw that Red Thread was having a picket, and I sought them out, and I was like, okay, I want to join this picket because I know that sexual violence is not a family matter, it's something that should be addressed seriously. And when it's raised, it definitely should not be upheld and kind of embraced by those who we put to protect us, particularly in government positions. So I think that your experiences definitely shaped your passion, and yeah, that's one of the things that has helped to shape my passion. So some of my own experiences.
Akola, thank you so very much. Unfortunately, we have to close here. But before I do, I want to read something by Dr. Wazir Mohammed. Very wise word. Selwyn, she need not have political aspirations. Her ideas are grand in themselves. Politics should not be the be all and end all. She's on the right track. We are too much politicized as a society. That's
Yes.
from Dr. Wazir Mohammed. I couldn't agree with him more. And I want to thank you. You'll hear from me or Anije about coming back on the show because I have so many questions for you. And I think our society needs to hear this this amazingly brilliant young lady. And thank you very much, Akola.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.